Hey, it's great to be here today, especially since, this is my hometown. I just want to thank the organizing crew again. Like, this is so much more well organized than when I helped out. Yeah, so today I'm here on behalf of RGA, and what I want to talk about today is diversity, inclusion, and design, and hopefully my perspective on this resonates with you guys. So I'm starting with a quote, and it's by T.S. Eliot, one of the most notable poets in the 20th century. But really, there's a lot of ways you can interpret this quote, and that's something important to note. And what it is humankind cannot bear very much reality. And I think he was alluding at something really fundamental to the way humans work. I think he's talking about unconscious bias. Unconscious bias is sort of the fact that we make all these decisions without even knowing it in any given moment. And one thing to make clear is that this thing that we can do as people doesn't make us bad. For example, if you see a wild animal, you can think we react in a way where it's either fight or flight or freeze, and it's just a natural human response that, as humans, helps us survive, or it can be useful. So looking at our brains as a whole, our brain processes a ton of information at any given time, and as a whole we have conscious and unconscious. And that conscious is really just the tip. It's just what we know is happening is just the tip of the iceberg, and everything else that's unconscious, all this other stuff that's being processed beneath the surface, is unconscious. So in other words, our brain uses shortcuts. In a lot of ways, we, without even knowing it, will generate answers based on our personal experiences, cultural environments, and our backgrounds, who we are, where our family is, where we're from, our religion, all sorts of things. So in a lot of ways, we tend to fill in the blanks. And it can happen regarding many different things, like gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, many things. But it's important to remember that each of these things is a variety of qualities to think about. And so as designers, when we're asked to think about who we're designing for, there may be a few things or a lot of things, depends on how much you know or how smart you are, but there's a few things you may know, but a lot of the time, the rest of the things we're filling in the blanks. And this needs to change. Out there in the world, there's a lot of examples where design and technology has failed us. And I can note a few, but I would encourage everyone to just do their own research and look out for it themselves. But for example, Google's ad targeting system, men are shown high-paying jobs, 6 times more likely than women. For example, and another example, veterans are sometimes automatically disqualified from through HR software because it doesn't recognize their military skills. Or facial recognition systems failing, tagging you as a gorilla because of your skin color. And furthermore, TSA body biometric scans, misidentifying trans people when they're going through borders. So all of this is a reminder that a lot of these systems aren't designed for us. So a lot of these systems out there, all of these products, they span across different identities, cultures, and communities. Sometimes we have to think about it more beyond just like our product audience. We really don't know who may use it in the end. So when you're designing for systems like that, we encounter a large variety of problems, and that requires a large variety of responses. And this is also known as requisite variety theory, and it's actually one of the key concepts of behavioral design, according to Hugh Doubleday, who's I think a lot of us from SFU at least have learned about through Hugh Doubleday, but he's one of the leading design thinkers. So knowing that um, with viewpoints, with all these problems and all these different problems that occur through um, because of the large variety of problems and then the variety of responses we need, I just want to show some examples where designing with different viewpoints can lead to better, I wouldn't want to say innovations, but I think it's better universal solutions. It covers more ground. And so, for example, Instagram, Mike Krieger and his co-founders really sought to create a product with international appeal. And Mike Krieger grew up in Brazil, and with that experience, he knew that English would hinder adoption in a lot of other parts of the world similar to Brazil. So he purposefully eliminated most of the text from the application, and this eventually led to Instagram. So it just goes to show his personal subjectiveness had an impact. And another example is China's mega social app, WeChat, right? They had a big part in their application that's about chat messaging, and they could have totally followed in the footsteps of like Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp, but they looked closely at their audience, Chinese speakers, and they realized voice messaging was a great feature for them to implement. And with this example, it's important to remember that that feature is universal to everyone, right? It's not just for Chinese people. It can be used by anyone. So I'm representing RGA today, so I kind of want to talk about how RGA starts to address these things. So at RGA, we are creatives across different cities, countries, and cultures. We benefit from a variety of designers from different places with different viewpoints. Creatives often work between offices. While it's not perfect, definitely encounter a lot of difficulties with this, but we start to address the variety of problems with a variety of responses. And creatives are often encouraged to jump on projects abroad. When an office has a ton of work, we'll enlist help from other offices. When an office is slow, it will offer help to other offices. All this is an opportunity for creatives to diversify themselves and also to share their viewpoints when they work in new teams. So that's at a broad look, some of the initiative. There's also different initiatives in particular offices. One thing I know, London is kind of doing the best job out of most of the offices, and they have different programs. They do a lot of outreach into schools, part of the reason why I'm here. And then they have a program called Women Up, and they actively engage students with mentors from their office. So there's things like that. But I also want to talk about what we can do beyond initiatives in place, beyond systems that are already happening. What can we do as individuals or as collectives? What can we do to diversify our environment, foster inclusivity, and make sure systems work for everyone? So I want to start with building teams. So when building teams, I think we can kind of start forgetting about finding the right fit. I think we should think about people think about people and their unique experiences and the gaps they may fill. Focus on their experiences as unique perspectives they may bring, and the new knowledge they can share to complement teams. When building teams, we tend to just think about different roles. I think it's important to diversify your teams beyond roles like producers, UX designers, visual designers, developers. Like every team needs that to get through the production process. Every team needs that to go from idea to shipping it. But what we really need to do is diversify these roles and make sure that we diversify with gender, race, age, sexual orientation, or simply other viewpoints. Because when we're building products that scale across communities, we need to make sure that all their needs, everyone's needs are represented. Another thing I think we can think about is beware of comfort in majorities. And again, I kind of want to refer back to an earlier slide. Our unconscious decisions are wired to help us survive. This leads to a lot of people staying in their comfort zones. If there's a majority of people with the same backgrounds or viewpoints, this can lead to others becoming outliers. So instinctually, we may be avoiding, but instead we should be running towards instead and confronting new gut dialogue that normally we may be not even knowing it, avoiding it. So lastly, I want to leave with this, and it's just some things that we can do all the time, pretty much, when we engage in new dialogue. So listen, pause, focus on becoming aware, and gather information objectively. And when we're in this new dialogue, reflect on what it means to you as an individual, as your experiences interpret it. But also think about what other possible interpretations there could be. And also show compassion, appreciate these new interpretations and take positive action on it. Because at an event like this, we're a room of designers and creatives, and for sure there's a lot of pride in being able to understand why and having an open minds. But even then, it can still be subject to your unconscious decisions. So to push for change, I think it's a constant conscious effort to stay aware. It's a conscious effort to foster diversity, to ensure needs are represented, to help viewpoints come together to yield more creativity, while being inclusive to set these new perspectives up for success. So yeah, I really encourage everyone to dig into this more. I honestly believe there's a lot of complexity out there about this at a high level, but a lot of nuances too. And a lot of this material, I think, can really help make designers more thoughtful and compassionate. Thank you.